Senate Commandos were the best of the Senate Guard, an elite security force based on Coruscant that was responsible for protecting members of the Galactic Senate. Like the more common guardsmen, Commandos functioned as bodyguards for senators, including the Supreme Chancellor, as well as security detail for enemies of the Republic, such as prisoners of war. Their armour was designed to offer extra flexibility, allowing them to react incredibly quickly to any situation. However, nearing the end of the Clone Wars, Senate Commandos alongside the rest of the Senate Guard were gradually replaced by their Red Guard counterparts. Welcome to the CXXII Star Wars Lore Episode 122, Senate Commandos. As protectors of the Supreme Chancellor and the Galactic Senate, Senate Commandos' duties included guarding various rooms and offices within the Senate building and its counterpart, the Republic Executive Building. They also specialised in carrying out field missions on behalf of the Senate and the Judicial Department. With their high-profile status, they were awarded top priority assignments, as noted by Jedi Commander Ahsoka Tano when a unit of Senate Commandos was dispatched to guard the Separatist prisoner Newt Gunray. Having a reputation for being the best and bravest soldiers of the Senate Guard, the Guardsmen were noted for having excellent service records, making them eligible for transporting important Republic political figures during diplomatic voyages to other planets. Aside from accompanying the Supreme Chancellor every time he left Coruscant, Senate Commandos also guarded Orn Free Taa and Duchess Satine Kryze at some point during the Clone Wars. In order to join the Commandos' ranks, recruits had to undergo a brutal 4-week-long additional combat training module. Once deemed ready, they were promoted and deployed into a squad, where they reported to a commander. Members of the Senate Commandos felt a great deal of pride, and they were one of the most cherished traditions of the Galactic Republic. Senate Commandos were dressed more and used more practically than their Senate Guard counterparts, who were mostly used for ceremonial functions. They were equipped with far more functional armour, which did not include heavy robes or symbolic feather plumes. Instead, Commandos wore similar armour to Phase 1 battle armour of the Republic's clone troopers. But despite the aesthetic resemblance, both sets of armour hugely differed in colour and helmet design. Primarily clad in blue, the trademark shade of the entire Senate Guard, Commandos' armour featured an enlarged left pauldron and was very flexible. The armour was also customisable, which helped separate different ranks within the faction. Commando officers, such as captains, wore helmets with ceremonial crests and had white symbolic designs, such as the seal of the Galactic Senate, incorporated with the traditional blue colour. Another aspect of the Senate Commandos that separated them from the Senate Guard was their weaponry. Whilst their more formal contemporaries wielded ceremonial blaster rifles, each Commando was armed with a DC-15A blaster rifle, a DC-15S, and a thermal grenade. Unlike the Republic's clone troopers, Senate Commandos and Red Guards were all human volunteers. Because of this being one of the few non-clone units regularly deployed on special assignments, Senate Commandos formed a fierce rivalry with the clone soldiers. However, they were all still issued identification numbers for security reasons, such as SG-1984. By the time the Clone Wars began, the Senate Commandos had been serving the Galactic Republic for centuries. When Separatist Council member Newt Gunray was captured and detained by Republic authorities, Captain Pharaoh Argaius and his squad of commandos were tasked with transferring the Nyamodian to Coruscant. However, members of the CIS were not willing to lose a key player of theirs, and so Count Dooku dispatched his dark acolyte Asajj Ventress to retrieve Newt. After infiltrating the Venator-class Star Destroyer Tranquility, on which Gunray was being held, Ventress quickly managed to kill many clone troopers and Senate Commandos. Unfortunately, the Dark Acolyte ultimately succeeded in her objective with the help of Captain Argaius, who turned his back on the Republic at the promise of freedom and wealth by Count Dooku. He killed many of his brothers in the process. After the betrayal, Captain Japhon and many commandos were killed by a group of bounty hunters whilst guarding the Republic Executive Building. The situation led to a hostage crisis where several senators were held captive. Later, Senate Commandos were involved with an abduction attempt on Duchess Satine Kryze, though many more were killed as a result. Nearing the end of the Clone Wars, Senate Commandos were involved with many high-profile events with Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, including when he made a scheduled visit to his homeworld of Naboo for the Festival of Light. However, the Senate Commandos were eventually phased out alongside the rest of the Senate Guard. When the Galactic Empire was formed, Palpatine's security was entrusted to the Imperial Royal Guard, and enforcement on Coruscant was handed off to the Empire Stormtroopers, both of which officially ended the service of the Senate Commandos. If you want to learn more about the equipment used by Senate Commandos and their members, then click the link on screen or the one in the description. Now it's time for this week's question. Should the Senate Commandos have been replaced? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to vote for next week's episode by liking one of the 3 comments below, and tell me what in the Star Wars universe I should cover in the future. Thanks for watching, and for more Star Wars lore, keep it locked here to the Counterparts. Royal Guards served many people at times and had different roles. They would protect anyone the Emperor specified, and even top secret and important facilities.